Ambassador Sarah stood before the massive circular chamber, feeling very small. The Galactic Council Hall was built for beings much larger than humans. Some council members towered 15 feet tall. Others floated in anti-gravity bubbles filled with their home atmosphere. A few existed as pure energy, contained in special crystalline vessels. Sarah had been Earth's ambassador to the Galactic Council for only 3 months. She was the youngest human to ever hold this position. Many back on Earth had questioned the decision to send a 32-year-old woman to represent humanity among ancient alien civilizations. But Earth's leaders saw something special in her. They saw a mind that worked differently. The council chamber fell silent as High Arbiter raised his 4 massive arms. He was a species known for their perfect logic and mathematical minds. His skin shimmered under the chamber lights. His 6 eyes focused on the center of the room where a holographic display showed a dying star system. "We face a crisis without solution," announced. His voice echoed through translator devices worn by every delegate. "The Velar system will experience stellar collapse in exactly 47 standard days. 3 billion will die unless we evacuate them. But there is a problem." The hologram changed to show thousands of ships surrounding the system. They refuse to leave their sacred. Their ancient religion forbids them from abandoning the soil where their ancestors are buried. They would rather die than break this spiritual law. Murmurs spread through the council. Sarah watched as various alien delegates whispered among themselves. She noticed frustration on many faces. This problem had apparently been discussed many times before. "Furthermore," continued, "our calculations show we lack sufficient transport capacity anyway. Even if they agreed to leave, we could only save approximately 40% of their population. The remaining 60% would perish." A tall delegate from the collective stood up. His mandibles clicked rapidly as he spoke. "We have run 17,000 simulations. Every outcome results in massive death. The mathematics are clear. There is no solution that saves everyone." Sarah felt her heart sink. She had read the briefing documents about the Velar crisis. The numbers were devastating. 3 billion souls trapped by their faith and the limitations of physics. "They have made their choice," spoke a floating consciousness from the collective. Its voice seemed to come from everywhere at once. "We must respect their religious freedom, even unto death. Interference would violate our most sacred laws of cultural autonomy." Several delegates nodded in agreement. Sarah watched as alien after alien expressed acceptance of the tragedy. They spoke of mathematics and probability. They discussed the philosophical implications of religious freedom. They debated the legal frameworks governing intervention. But nobody talked about actually solving the problem. Sarah raised her hand. The chamber grew quiet. All eyes, sensors, and perception organs turned toward the small human standing in her designated spot. "The Council recognizes Ambassador of Earth," said. There was a hint of impatience in his voice. Earth was still considered a primitive newcomer to galactic society. Many doubted humans had anything valuable to contribute. Sarah took a deep breath. "Honored council members, I have a question. Why must the leave there?" Confused silence followed. The delegate made a clicking sound that translated as condescending laughter. "Because their son is dying, human. Did you not understand the briefing materials?" "I understood them perfectly," Sarah replied calmly. "But I want to confirm something. The religious law states they cannot abandon the soil where their ancestors are buried, correct?" Checked his data tablet. "That is correct. The sacred soil must never be abandoned. This is the fundamental principle of their faith." Sarah nodded slowly. Her mind was racing through possibilities. This was how she always worked. While others focused on the obvious problem, she looked for the hidden assumptions. Every puzzle had a weakness. Every impossible situation had a crack somewhere. "And the transport limitation," she continued. "You say we can only move 40% of the population. Is this because of ship capacity or something else? Ship capacity and time constraints, answered. We simply do not have enough vessels to move 3 billion beings in 47 days. How many ships would we need to save everyone? The delegate consulted his calculations. Approximately 12,000 additional large transport vessels. We have access to 4,000. Building more is impossible in the time remaining. Sarah closed her eyes for a moment. The pieces were coming together in her mind. She saw the shape of a solution forming. It was crazy. It was unconventional, but it might work. What if we do not move she asked. The chamber erupted in confused chatter, raised his arms for silence. Explain yourself, Ambassador. Sarah walked toward the holographic display. She manipulated the controls, zooming in on the religious law forbids abandoning the sacred soil. But what if the sacred soil goes with them? More confusion. Sarah continued before anyone could interrupt. You are all thinking about this problem in one direction. Move the people away from the danger. But what if we move the danger away from the people instead? She pulled up additional data on the hologram. That has a mass of approximately 6 trillion metric tons. Your civilization has gravity manipulation technology. You have engines capable of moving asteroid mining stations. What if we combine these technologies? Understanding began to dawn on several faces. Sarah pressed forward. We do not evacuate we evacuate their entire planet. We attach massive gravity engines to the planet itself and move it to a safe star system. The people never leave their sacred soil. The soil simply moves to a new location. Stunned silence filled the chamber. Then chaos erupted. Impossible, shouted the delegate. The energy requirements alone would be astronomical. The gravitational stresses would tear the planet apart, added a scientist. No civilization has ever moved an entire inhabited world, someone else called out. Raised his arms again. The chamber slowly quieted. The High Arbiter studied Sarah with new interest in his 6 eyes. This proposal is unprecedented, Ambassador. The technical challenges would be enormous. But is it impossible? Sarah asked. I am not an engineer. I do not know the specific technical requirements, but I know your civilizations have achieved wonders far beyond anything humans have imagined. You have faster-than-light travel. You have devices that manipulate gravity itself. You have energy sources that could power entire star systems. She turned to face the full council. The question is not whether you have the capability. The question is whether you are willing to think differently about the problem. A long silence followed. Then the representative from the Mechanist Collective spoke. This being was a fusion of organic and machine components, its mind enhanced by quantum processors. I am running calculations now. The human's proposal is theoretically possible. With combined resources from the major council members, we could generate sufficient power. The gravitational stress could be managed with distributed field generators, added another technological species. We would need to deploy approximately 50,000 units across the planetary surface. The journey would take 39 days at safe velocity, the Mechanist continued. The nearest suitable star system is the Cora system, currently uninhabited. They could establish their new home there. More delegates began contributing ideas. Engineers and scientists from a dozen species started collaborating on calculations. What had seemed impossible moments ago was becoming a detailed engineering project. Sarah stepped back and watched in amazement. The entire mood of the council had shifted. Instead of accepting defeat, they were now competing to contribute solutions. Species that had barely spoken to each other were sharing technical knowledge. Ancient rivalries were set aside in the face of this unprecedented challenge. Approached Sarah. The massive lowered his body to speak closer to her level. Ambassador, in my 300 years serving this council, I have never witnessed such a proposal. You have done something remarkable today. I just asked different questions, Sarah replied humbly. No, said. You did something far more valuable. You saw what none of us could see. We were trapped by our assumptions. We assumed the people must move. We assumed the planet must stay. You broke these assumptions and found a third path. He paused, his 6 eyes studying her with something like wonder. We pride ourselves on our logic, the belief their collective intelligence is supreme, that considers itself the most advanced consciousness in the galaxy, yet none of us saw what you saw. Sarah thought about his words. Perhaps that is because you are all so advanced. Your minds work in certain patterns. They follow established rules. Humans are still young. Our minds are still chaotic. We have not yet learned that some things are impossible. Made a sound that his translator rendered as gentle laughter. Then perhaps chaos has its own wisdom, ambassador. Over the following hours, the council transformed Sarah's idea into a concrete plan. Resources were pledged, ships were diverted, engineering teams were assembled. The largest collaborative project in galactic history was taking shape. And at the center of it all stood a young human woman who had simply refused to accept that 3 billion people must die. When the formal session ended, delegates from across the galaxy approached Sarah. Some expressed gratitude, others expressed curiosity about human thinking. A few seemed almost disturbed by what had happened. Their ancient worldviews had been challenged by a species they had dismissed as primitive. The ambassador was the last to approach. His species was humanoid but with pale blue skin and large dark eyes. Tears streamed down his face as he took Sarah's hands in his own. You have saved my people, he whispered. Not just our lives, but our souls. We can honor our ancestors and still survive. You understood what the others could not. The soil is not just ground beneath our feet. It is our connection to everything we are. You found a way to preserve that connection. Sarah squeezed his hands. Every culture has things worth preserving. I just wanted to find a way to preserve yours. As Sarah walked back to the human delegation quarters that evening, she thought about what had happened. The galaxy was full of ancient species with vast knowledge and incredible technology. They had solved problems humans could barely imagine. They had built wonders that the laws of physics as Earth understood them. But somewhere along the way they had lost something. They had become prisoners of their own success. Their great minds thought in straight lines, following paths that had worked before. When those paths led nowhere, they simply gave up. Humans were different. Their minds were messy and unpredictable. They made connections that seemed random. They asked foolish questions that turned out to be brilliant. They refused to accept limitations that others considered absolute. Perhaps this was humanity's true gift to the galaxy. Not technology or resources or military power, but a different way of seeing, a willingness to break the rules of thought itself. In 47 days, an entire planet would begin a journey to a new star. 3 billion lives would be saved. And across the galaxy, species that had considered themselves superior to humans would remember this day. They would remember the young ambassador who silenced their council with nothing more than a question. They would remember that sometimes the youngest voice in the room sees what the cannot, and they would never underestimate humanity again. Sarah smiled as she looked out at the stars. Earth had finally earned its place among them, not through strength or wealth, but through the most human quality of all: the simple refusal to accept that there was no other way.